What's up? So I figured I'd give this a try since it's the last day of summer. At least, you know, kind of officially for me. I go back to work tomorrow, even though the students don't show up for another week. So I decided to end the official summer with one last review, trying to get caught up. And let me tell you something, folks. This one fucking sucks. It's pretty terrible. And it's another one of those ones that every review I've heard is like, oh, it's great, it's so good, and she's such a great character, and blah 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 blah. Lies, all of it. It's one of those films that has one saving grace. One. And if it wasn't for this one saving grace, I would just write this entire film off. But I'll get to that in a second. So, basically, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's basically like trying to be a new spy thriller based on a graphic novel. And it's, God, I think the biggest problem with it is that this film is trying so hard to be cool that it doesn't just let itself be cool. It has every shot, every action, every moment has to be drenched in cool to convince us that it really is cool. And it comes off just so fake and so phony and so just plastic. It's awful. Part of the problem, directed by David Lynch. And David Lynch is one of these directors who's more in love with his style than he ever is with creating anything even remotely comprehensible. You know, last night I saw Dunkirk, which had a very specific directing style, but it was there to help tell the story. This one is there constantly to pull your attention to it and go, look how cool I am. Look how cool this is. And that translates into everything, every aspect of this movie. Charlize Theron, who is an excellent actor. I really like her as a performer. But, oh my God, like every moment of this is, you know, her, every line is done in this breathy voice to show you how sexy she is. You know, and all these shots of her body and her slow, even when she's all beat up, you know, everything, her body is very overly fetishized. Instead of just letting her be a beautiful woman, no, everything has to shout us, this is a beautiful, sexy woman. You can't just let her be, you know? The lighting in this is so goddamn obnoxious because it's so, there's neon, you know, they have several scenes in her hotel room where the light is all pink and blue neon in a hotel room. I don't know what hotel room only has specifically pink and blue neon lighting, even in the 80s in Russia, or I'm sorry, in Germany, but I'm pretty sure most of them would have a fluorescent somewhere. Now, part of that could be, to be fair, I want to be fair to this, part of that could be because maybe that's how the comic is, and maybe the director is trying to be faithful to the comic much in the same way the director of The Crow was trying to be faithful to the comic with the very gothic feel of it. But this one doesn't achieve the same, at least for me. You know, the thing it did for me the most was give me a headache. And I gotta say, there are a lot of trends I'm currently really sick of in movies, but the one I'm really getting sick of is the goddamn obnoxious soundtrack. The movie that shifts songs every scene. Like every time it cuts away to something else, it's a new rock soundtrack. You know, I liked the old days of movies where the soundtrack was just as important. I liked that. I liked a movie that was known just as much for its excellent soundtrack as it was for the film. I did. I do. But it seems like, and again, you got to blame something that was awesome for something that sucks. You got to blame Guardians of the Galaxy a bit for this, because they were the ones that started this whole, you know, big soundtrack craze again, and now it seems like almost every movie I go to, the music is shifting so much, and it's so loud and so insistent that it's like, it just pounds in your head. Oh man. So I hate that. I hated it. You couldn't get invested in the story. You really couldn't get invested in it. And the story was so, frickin' convoluted that the weird directing and the choppiness of the scenes and the jumping back and forth didn't help keep the story, coherent. Also, it showed you almost all of the really great action scenes in the trailers. The whole thing with her beating the guy with her shoe in the back of the car, or her fighting the guys in the apartment and then jumping out the window with the cord around the guy's neck. Pretty much shot for shot, you can see it in the trailers and the commercials. So there's no reason to see it here. No reason to pay the money. Now, that being said, there is one thing that makes this almost a good movie. There's a stretch of time in this, like a 10 minutes or so, that is so good and so awesome that I found myself getting invested and really digging it. And then the minute it was over, I was out. They went back to the crappiness and it was out. There's a moment in here where the directing choices, the style and everything, it all came together and did something really unique and cool. So about halfway through the movie, for reasons I won't get into, mainly because I don't understand them, the whole purpose here is Charlize Theron's character is trying to sneak this dude out of Berlin during the Cold War. And so there's this big extended sequence where the plan goes sideways, because of course it's a spy movie, so of course the plan goes sideways. And they run into this building and they're trying to avoid KGB agents. And it's this long sequence, this huge fight scene of her taking on all these different KGB agents on the stairs into one of the apartments. And it's all done in like one shot. Like the camera tracks and just follows them through the action, backs up and goes in. If there are any cuts in there, they're extremely well hidden. Like I have a suspicion, there's a couple of times where the characters spin and like their jacket spins out and covers the camera and then comes. I have a sneaking suspicion that's where they made the cuts. But if that's true, they were so extremely well hidden, it didn't affect it. It's just this long tracking shot of her just fighting all these guys. And in that moment, so that's a director choice that was freaking awesome. And in that moment, they dropped all the other shit that was weighing this movie down. All the other crap went away, and they let just the pure awesomeness of that whole sequence be awesome. And it was a great fight scene. Kudos to Charlize Theron for it. Kudos to the stunt guys. Kudos to whoever choreographed it. Kudos to the director. I just badmouthed them. I got to give him praise for this. And it's a long scene. It's like at a certain point I started timing it, and it's a good almost 10-minute scene with no visible cuts. And what I love about it is something you don't see in any other spy movie. Something you don't see in a Bond film, something you don't see in a Jason Bourne film. But as she's fighting, she's getting more tired and more beat up, and she's bleeding more. There's this great moment in kind of the climactic moment of the fight where she and the guy she's fighting, they kind of like drag themselves up, and they're sitting there like looking like two wrestlers. They take like very weak swings and all. It felt real. And then it goes out into the street. They get into a car. The shot's still tracking them, so there's no cut, and they don't do a cut until like there's a car crash, and then it cuts away to show the car flipping over. But it's this long sequence, not just of the hand combat, but there's a long sequence in the car where like the camera is spinning back and forth between the front view and the rear view as she's taking out all the people pursuing. It's a fucking awesome sequence. And it saved this movie from just being a complete shit show instead of a mostly shit show. Like, it was enough to, like, raise it up, in my opinion. I almost was, like, ready to reverse my review, but then it came back into everything else and went right back into its other, everything else that was going on here. You almost forgot that sequence happened. You're so bogged down with all the crap. But that sequence was so good. It kind of reminds me of the sequence in Wonder Woman where she goes across no man's land and is taking out all the Germans and all that. It's kind of like that sequence, because that sequence was like the gem of that movie. The difference between this one and Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman at least had a coherent plot, and even though I have my complaints about it and I didn't really like it, I can still sit here and admit to you it was very honest in its portrayal. It was very, there was some time and some care taken to try to make the characters likable and understandable and relatable, even though I don't think they made it. This film, no such luck. There is no good in the portrayals of this movie. The only guy you can give any kind of acclimate to, as always, is John Goodman, because John Goodman is always fucking awesome. You know, never seen him in something where he wasn't fucking awesome. I mean, Charlize Theron does a good job in, you know, in certain elements. Like I said, that fight scene, I mean, that took a lot, and, you know, I got to give her all the credit in the world for it. But they didn't give her anything to play. You know, they didn't give her anything but the sex pot. She's playing the sex pot the whole way through. Now, say what you want, and I'm not trying to get into a men versus women thing. I'm comparing characters. It's not a difference between genders. It's a difference between character portrayal. So please make that distinction first. Say what you want about James Bond, but at least James Bond has a character. It's a slight character. It's a thin character, but it is a character that you can kind of hang the hat on, and it makes everything else he does, you know, worth it. You're invested in him. There's no character here. Yes, in Bond films, there's the sexual aspect to him, but he's not that 24 hours a day. And here, that's all they just wanted you to know that she was hot. You know, and maybe I'm not the right guy to talk to, you know, about sexual empowerment. I'm not a woman. I can't speak from that point of view, you know. So maybe, I don't know, maybe this can be viewed as empowering in that she was comfortable with her body and sexuality, and so I don't know. If someone saw this and feels empowered by it, then good for you. Excellent. I'm glad that you got something out of it and found a positive role model. Good, you know, good on you. But from my perspective, it really did seem like all they were going for is she's hot, you know. And I think the reason, again, why I love that 10-minute sequence is because all that was gone and she was just a badass. They let her just be a badass. It didn't matter, you know, that she was a good-looking woman. There was no over-sexualization of her. She was just a badass, kicking ass, and that's what made it work. So yeah, I gotta say, this one I'm a little disappointed in, because I wasn't expecting much. I kind of knew from the commercials it was going to be a very stylized film. I didn't know it was going to be this stylized to a point of obnoxiousness. So I'm a bit disappointed in it. Again, mainly because I wish they'd had more sequences like that one I was talking about, where they hadn't shown all the really good stuff in the trailers, because it left you nothing to look forward to. So I don't know. Another very disappointing film. I'm noticing there's a lot of films this year that are just not hitting that upper echelon for me. They're just not getting there. And there are times when I start wondering, is it just me? Am I expecting too much, or what? Because everybody else seems to love them, and you're just like, am I wrong? You know, it wouldn't be the first time, but you know. So again, if you go see this movie and you got something out of it and you think it was really empowering and a badass, then, you know, good for you. You know, for me, aside from that really great 10 to 15 minutes where I was totally engrossed, the most I can say is this movie gave me a minor headache. And I think, given the talent of the people involved, if that's all you can say about it, that's kind of not good. Will this end up on my worst of the year list? I don't think so. I think there are other movies that are worse. But, you know, and I hate to say this, so the best film I can kind of compare this to is Batman v Superman, where they had a style in mind and they went for that style, full guns a-blazing, but it was a style that was completely counterproductive to the film they were trying to make, at least in my opinion. But again, what saves it is, you know, I'm preaching about this 15-minute scene, and it's good. Like I say, it is pretty much worth the price of admission to go check out this scene. So anyway, so that's my summer at the movies. Again, I know summer technically doesn't end until next week for the kiddos, but we're back at work tomorrow, getting ready, and then we're back in for my sophomore teaching year. So here's hoping it goes better than my first year. But you know, the great thing about doing my job is that you need to unwind over the weekend, so I'll be back with more videos. So until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.